I want to start with a number. $84 trillion. That is the estimated value of assets transferring from baby boomers and silent generation to Gen X and millennials over the next 25 years. It is the largest transfer of wealth in human history, and it is already in motion. Studies consistently show that up to 70% of inherited wealth is depleted by the second generation. 70%. That is not a number about careless heirs. That is a number about unprepared ones. And that is this entire episode.
This transfer is not a future event. It is happening right now. The silent generation is in the final stages. Baby boomers are in the early and middle stages. The heirs are already receiving. Many of them have no idea what to do with what they're getting.
It's most commonly, huh?
Yeah.
Welcome back. I am Natalie Francinne.
And I'm Alexis Nassif. Today we give your family the roadmap to planning your estate.
Let's stay with that number. 70% gone by the second generation. Why?
The builders spent decades developing financial discipline, real estate knowledge, and investment instincts. The heir receives the result without any of the process that produced it.
And nobody brought them into the room while the building was happening.
That is the root of almost every case I have seen. Not irresponsibility, exclusion from the conversation.
There is a gender dimension to this I want to name specifically. Even in families where the will divided everything equally, the financial conversations, the estate planning discussions, the here is what we have and here is what we want, those conversations more often happened with the sons than they did with the daughters. The assumption that the daughter would marry someone who would handle it or defer to a male sibling. That assumption costs women money every generation.
I see it regularly still. It happened to me.
Yeah. Not in this family, not after this episode.
For real.
We're changing how all of that happens.
Exactly. And we're going to do it with the help of you guys watching this.
Let's make that number real. What does $84 trillion actually consist of?
Real estate is the largest single component, 30 to 40% of the total, $30 to $35 trillion in property alone. Financial accounts are second, retirement, brokerage, savings, then life insurance, business interest, and personal property.
And real estate dominates not just in size, but in complexity. You can liquidate a brokerage account in a phone call. Real estate requires appraisals, legal proceedings, family decisions, market timing, title work. It is the asset most likely to create conflict and most likely to lose value if it is not handled strategically.
Also, the most likely to sit in probate for 18 months accruing costs, which we covered last week.
What does value destruction actually look like in this situation, Alexis, concretely?
A property in probate for 18 months, bleeding carrying costs, a vacation home 3 siblings inherit and cannot agree, eventually sold at a fraction of market value just to end the dispute. A rental portfolio The heirs have no experience managing. Liquidated at the bottom of a market cycle because nobody knew how to hold it.
Yes. None of those are dramatic failures. They are ordinary outcomes for unprepared families. The 70% doesn't disappear in one catastrophic moment. It evaporates in 100 small ones.
Oh boy. Ordinary outcomes for families who never had the conversation.
So, Alexis, walk us through who is actually receiving this wealth and what they're up against.
Gen X, born roughly 1965 to 1980, is the first wave. Many are in their 40s and 50s at peak earning years, receiving inheritances from parents in their 70s and 80s. Millennials, born roughly 1981 to 1996, will receive the larger portion of baby boomer wealth over the next 2 to 3 decades.
And both generations face a version of the same challenge. The inheritance represents more wealth than they have ever personally managed. The scale is unfamiliar, the asset class is complex, and the legal machinery of the transfer is completely opaque to most people until they're inside it.
That gap between the scale of what's arriving and the experience to manage it is where the 70% goes. They don't manage.
It is also, for the record, exactly why this show exists. 8 episodes in, and you are no longer that gap. That is not nothing. In a wealth transfer, there are essentially 3 real estate scenarios a family faces. Alexis, walk us through them.
Scenario 1, family home, clear title, no mortgage, agreement among heirs. Best case, even here, trust matters. Family conversation matters, but manageable. Scenario 2, family home plus investment properties. Multiple heirs, some agreement, and some tension. Most common, the agreement surfaces for the family home. The disagreement surfaces for the investment properties. Scenario 3, complex estate. Multiple properties, multiple states, contested valuations, family conflict. This is where family lose the most.
Yes, let's stay in scenario 2 for a moment because I think that's where most of our listeners live. The investment properties are where it gets complicated, especially when one heir has been managing them.
The managing heir believes they deserve preferential treatment. The other heirs believe equal means equal. Both positions feel entirely reasonable to the person holding them.
And without a clear instruction from the parents, a documented intention, not just an assumption, there is no answer, only a dispute, which is why the family conversation is not an option. It is the document that makes every other document work.
I keep saying that because it keeps being true. I've gone through this.
What is the single most protective thing a family can do right now for scenarios 2 and 3?
Have the conversation, then document it in that order.
Good advice.
Yes.
Let's put real numbers on what happens to a typical estate that goes through the system unprepared. Because I think the abstract is less motivating than the specific.
Okay. Family with $2 million in real estate. One home, one investment property. No trust. Parent dies. California probate statutory attorney fees on $2 million. Approximately $36,000. Executor fees, similar. Appraisal costs, court costs, miscellaneous, another $20,000 minimum. Timeline, 12 to 18 months. Carrying costs on 2 properties during that period, approximately $120,000, depending on the properties.
And so the estate has spent between $170,000 and $180,000 and 18 months before anyone inherits anything. And that is a clean case. There's no disputes and no complications.
Versus a properly structured estate trust in place, properties funded into it, successor trustees named. When the parent dies, the trustee steps in within days. Total cost, $4,000. The trust cost to establish this.
$170,000 versus $4,000. I want everyone to sit with that for a moment. The only reason to end up in that first scenario is that nobody told you the second one existed. You know now. Let's give people the roadmap for the family conversation, Alexis, because I think people here have the conversation and then don't know what that actually looks like at the dinner table.
3 components. The inventory here is what we have and how it is structured. The intention. Here is what we want to happen with it and why. The roles here is who is responsible for what when the time comes, and believe me, it will come.
The inventory piece is the one families skip most often. Parents assume their children know what they own. Children assume their parents have it handled. Nobody has actually looked at the same piece of paper together. I suggest a very simple approach. Parents, write down every piece of real estate that you own. How is it titled? And what's owed on it? Share that document with the heirs, not as a formal estate planning meeting, as a conversation. Here is what we have built. We want you to understand it. That document changes everything because now everyone is working from the same reality instead of their own assumptions.
The intention is where families discover they disagree. Before the legal proceedings forces the disagreement into a courtroom.
Which is infinitely better. A disagreement at the kitchen table is a conversation. A disagreement in a probate court is a war. Same underlying conflict, very different cost.
And the roles piece, naming the executor, the successor trustee, the person who makes decisions if a decision needs to be made quickly, needs to be a conversation, not just a legal document. The person named as the executor who discovers it at the worst moment of their life is at an enormous disadvantage. They're grieving. Name them, tell them, give them the relationships with the attorney and the real estate professional who will support them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Don't leave them starting from zero when zero is the worst place to start from. One action with a real deadline. If you own real estate and you do not have a trust, call an estate planning attorney this week, not next month, this week. Ask one question. What would a basic revocable living trust cost for my situation? Just the number. One call. 20 minutes. If you have children or heirs who will inherit your real estate, put the inventory conversation on the calendar this month. Not a formal estate planning meeting, a dinner where you tell them what you've built and what you want for it. If you are an heir waiting for that conversation to happen, you can just as easily initiate it. I've been learning about estate planning and I realized I don't know what to expect. Can we talk about it? That question is a gift. Give it.
The lesson from today, the great wealth transfer is not a future event. It is happening in your family right now, or it will be soon. The family suit preserve wealth through it. Treat it as a project to manage. You now know how to manage it.
Next week, the stories. Real clients, real decisions, real outcomes. Everything we have built this season gets tested against actual lives. Episode 9 is the one I have been most looking forward to. I am Natalie Francinne.
And I'm Alexis Nassif. These are the stories I have never told public. I am glad we are finally telling them now with no names mentioned.
This is Wealth, War, and Real Estate. Thank you.
See you next week. Tune in.
Bye-bye.
Hasta la vista.